Alright guys, so in this video I'm going to go over sockets. So there's actually more to cover regarding sockets than what you might think. They're normally just used to attach things. So before I get into too much detail on how they work and everything, let me just go ahead and show you how you add them. So if you right click on a bone, you can add a socket. So like the lower arm R, I added a socket. Now this will propagate to your skeletal asset. Right now I'm on the skeletal mesh asset. And so if I open up this skeletal asset right here, so you'll see if I find it, it's right here. But one thing you should notice is that it's actually already open. Now, as you can see, I added this to the lower arm R. But if I go to the lower arm R here, it won't show up. Now, why is that? Well, it's definitely there. It's just that we can't see it. So if your skeletal asset is already opened when you make changes to your skeletal mesh, or if your skeletal mesh asset is open when you make changes to your skeletal asset, in this current version of Unreal Engine, it's important to note that it will not automatically update the other window if it's already open. So in this situation, what I actually need to do is close this and then just reopen it. And if I reopen it, you'll see that if we go down to the upper arm, the lower arm underscore R, that socket now shows up. And if I delete it from here, you'll notice it still shows up on here. So I would have to do the same thing I did before. So I wanted to show you that so that you don't get confused whenever you're doing stuff like that. And you're like, well, I know I just added it. Why isn't it showing up? That's why. Or if you delete it and it still shows that it's there, but you know it's not, then that's the reason why. So after you've added them, you can right click and rename socket, or you can press this hotkey right here that shows up next to it, which is F2 for me. I don't know what it will be for you. If you have a Mac, I don't know if it's different. It may or may not be. But anyway, so whenever you create a socket, and I'll just create another one here, you can move it around in here. And you can even go to, so you need to select only that one. If you have multiple selected, it won't show up. But if you select only that one and you right click, you'll see add preview asset. And you can search for an asset. In this case, this is a first person shooter template, I believe. So it already shows up here. And so you'll see that's how it would look when it's attached to that socket. So what I can do is I can just rotate this 90 degrees. And maybe 90 degrees is too much, but I think that's actually not bad. I think it's probably fine in this situation. And then his hands, the weapon's pretty big, so it'll be hard to fit it into his hand without it clipping. What you'll probably end up doing is having to move the thumb out more, rotate it out more, and then you would need to wrap the fingers around it. So you'd probably rotate that out and down. But anyway, that's what you would do whenever you're making the animation. You'll probably want it about here, and then you'll have to rotate the index finger up a little bit to reach the trigger. But yeah, that's how sockets work. So whenever you attach that to a socket, that's how it'll show up. And we'll go over more in depth on using sockets, but in this video, I'm just going to go over like their purpose and how they work. So if I come over into the character blueprint now, and I find a rifle, and I just drag that on to this mesh here, you'll see we have a parent socket here. If it's underneath the mesh, this mesh right here, the one that's highlighted, then whatever sockets and bones are available for this skeletal mesh that's assigned here will show up under this list. And right here, that's hand_r socket. That was the default name. If I attach it, now you'll see he's holding it just like I had him holding it from the skeletal mesh. I'm just going to delete that. And now I'm just going to delete that socket. Now, one thing you need to be aware of is that sockets can't be animated from the animation graph, and they won't even show up in the animation graph. So if I do, say, a transform modify bone, and I go up here to the bone to modify, you'll see we see all the regular bones in here. But we don't see any of those sockets. Those sockets won't show up here, but on a control rig, they will. So you'll see this control rig right here. And I don't know, I might have refreshed this skeleton in here. And you can do that by right clicking and refresh and then selecting your skeletal mesh. But yeah, currently in this one, you'll see that the hand grip _L does show up, and so does the other one. And if I add one in here from the skeletal mesh, it won't show up here until I refresh it, just so you know. But you'll see that I can set the rotation, translation, add an offset to its current position, or set its relative transform. Now, I haven't tested that personally because I haven't found a good use case for that, but I'm sure there are some use cases. However, it's important to note that that movement will be linear because it'll be procedurally generated. And one thing about linear motion is it can come out looking uncanny. So it's important for you to know that you should probably limit procedural techniques as much as possible and only use them where they make absolute sense. If you overuse procedural techniques, then your animation system will just look overall bad. Yeah, so that's basically it. They're used to attach things to the character. And it's convenient, and they'll show up across all the characters. Like I said, you can't offset them, at least not from an anim graph. You probably can offset them from a control rig, but again, I have not tested that myself. I've never seen a use case for it, but you could maybe set up a control rig that offsets them procedurally, like, you know, add offset. You could do that so that you could add an offset per character. So characters with bigger hands or smaller hands may need to hold it differently. It may need to be offset in the hand in different ways, depending on how big or small their hands are. That might be a use case for setting something like that up in a control rig. Otherwise, you can actually just offset the item that's attached to that socket instead of trying to offset the socket. So that's also another option. And you can do that from right here in the blueprint when you attach it. So yeah, that's basically sockets. So I wanted to cover that. And the next one, I'm going to be covering virtual bones and IK bones.